reciprocal tariffs that the Trump administration has announced. Do you think India and US can actually resolve this issue in a very amicable way?
India is our friend. Let's not hurt one of the most important relationships in the world, which is the economic trade relationship between India and the United States.
$21 million were going to be sent to India for voter turnout influence.
Getting rid of USAID is bad for the world, and it's bad for democracy around the world, and it's certainly bad for our country.
In the US, there has been an anxiety among a lot of Indian immigrants who are working here legally under H-1B visa.
I want to make sure that they have a path to citizenship so they can be Americans if that's what they want.
The way and the manner in which illegal immigrants from India have been deported from the US.
And making sure that we treat all immigrants, documented or documented, like humans, like people with families.
How do you see the persecution of Hindus in the neighborhood of India, especially Bangladesh?
They had a regime change, and you started seeing temples being burnt down. You started seeing Hindus fear for their lives or lose their lives in some cases. We have to call that out. So I've called it out. I know many others in this building have. But I hope that we'll continue to call out instances where there's clear human rights violations, because that's our values as a country in the United States.
Today, the New Indian is in Washington, D.C. and we have with us Congressman Suhas Subramanyam, the first Hindu Indian American elected from Virginia as well as the East Coast. Welcome to Reason, the New Indians platform, where we get to the reasons behind the issues that concern all of us. Welcome, Mr. Subramanyam.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Subramanyam, let's begin this conversation with your political journey. You have been the first Hindu Indian American who's been elected in Virginia as well as the East Coast in the United States. What drove you towards politics, which I think probably is the most difficult profession in the United States for Indian Americans?
Well, it started with like a sense of service. In college, I went to a school where a big hurricane hit the city, and afterwards I just got involved in helping rebuild the city. And through that experience, through that community engagement, started realizing that if you want to help your community, politics was almost a necessity, really. You could do all the community service projects you wanted, but if the government wasn't a good partner in it, if our local officials weren't helping, or if they were doing things that were counterproductive to what we wanted to do, then you're not going to get anything done or help people at a bigger scale. And I worked here in Congress for a few years, and one of the first bills I worked on was on healthcare reform and helping increase and expand healthcare access to millions of Americans. And so, since then I've realized that you can do great things, and a lot of people, have a bad sort of a sense of what politicians are or do. But I see a lot of other members of Congress here who are in it for the right reasons, and that's why they're so successful.
Who was your inspiration?
There wasn't one person. My mother is a very influential figure in my life. She has trouble saying no like I do, and is always there to help people. And she's a doctor. That was her way of serving the community. And she would take on patients without charging them sometimes, because she just wanted to care for them. And she'd go above and beyond. She'd visit them at their homes, even outside of the clinic. And so, that sense of going above and beyond for your community has always stuck with me.
Okay, let's come to the topical issue at the moment. In the US, there has been an anxiety among a lot of Indian immigrants who are working here legally under H-1B visa. A lot of people don't know what their future is going to be with the kind of immigration policies the Donald Trump administration is bringing. What role do you see for yourself in smoothing out these anxieties for the Indian diaspora in the US?
Yeah, first we have to protect the H-1B visa program and the people who are on it. And part of that means educating our colleagues on how important it is. But two, there could be some reforms. I think a lot of people who are on H-1B visas feel like they're almost beholden to the company that they work for, and it's almost an indentured servitude, as one person described it, and that they wish that they had a little bit more sense of security when they come here. A lot of the people that come over with very important skills that are very important to our country, and also help strengthen relations between us and countries like India. And so I want to see us do more of that. If you want to call the program something different, fine. But let's get more people who have talent that can contribute to our country. And finally, I want to get people on H-1B visas, or even people that come over a faster path to citizenship. Because right now we have things like country quotas that are really hurting, especially Indian Americans and Indians that come here on H-1B visas. I want to make sure that they have a path to citizenship so they can be Americans if that's what they want.
There is a lot of outrage back home in India about the way and the manner in which illegal immigrants from India have been deported from the U.S. In fact, they were in shackles, they were handcuffed, and that's creating a lot of, I would say, discomfort among several sections of Indian society. What do you think could have been an alternative, and do you think that this is the way Americans actually treat their illegal immigrants?
That's not our values as a country. And you can have things like border security and enforcing immigration law, but also have a sense of decency and humanity, right? And I think that's completely unacceptable. People are right to be outraged, and we have to, as a country, do better. And I'm going to be putting this administration to task on making sure that we treat all immigrants, documented or documented, like humans, like people with families, because that's what we are and they are. And all of us in America are immigrants in the end, right? So what if we were treated like that when we came to the United States? And so we have to have more empathy, and we have to have more humanity really in our politics today across the board, not just immigration.
Well, there's another issue over which a lot of people are actually worried, which is reciprocal tariffs that the Trump administration has announced. Do you think India and US can actually resolve this issue in a very amicable way, and also strengthen their relationship simultaneously?
First, this administration, I think, needs to know who their friends and enemies really are. Russia is not our friend in the United States. China is not our friend in the United States. Iran is not our friend. So let's not treat these countries like they're our friends. But two, India is our friend, right? And we have a strong economic relationship. We have a strong social relationship. There's a bond there, and being the two largest democracies in the world. So let's act like it. Let's not be threatening our friends around the globe with tariffs. Let's not hurt one of the most important relationships in the world, which is the economic trade relationship between India and the United States. Let's strengthen it, right? Let's find ways to work more together. I want to see us do more on technology and innovation. I want us to see our space programs to work together. There's a lot of areas for collaboration, and tariffs are a way of backtracking and undermining that relationship. And so unfortunately, this president uses tariffs as a foreign policy tool. And in the short term, that may get you a press release and a headline the next day. But long term, it makes the United States less trustworthy, and it'll have ramifications for many years to come if that's the case.
Well, the USAID expose that this government has brought out, in fact, one of the outcomes of that USAID expose is that President Trump has been repeatedly saying that $21 million were going to be sent to India for voter turnout influence. Do you think that there should be a proper investigation into this, and why do you think this particular issue could actually strain India-US relationship?
There's a lot of misinformation and flat out lies about what USAID does. So they went through and they found all the things that USAID spent money on, and then they twisted them so they look like we were intervening or doing things that were over ideological. The reality is a lot of what you're hearing about USAID isn't true. And what USAID actually does is they help make sure that there's stability in our planet, really, in every country around the globe. And part of what USAID does is prevent wars, prevent strife. And I think the programs that were funded are a drop in the bucket of our federal budget, but they have so much impact. I've said, and so have my colleagues, if you're going to cut programs like USAID, you might as well double or triple your defense budgets. So, I've heard, I haven't heard that one, but I've heard many other accusations that USAID funded a trans opera, and you look into the details of it and you realize that it was either a flat out lie or it was just misinformed or embellished. And so I just think that getting rid of USAID is bad for the world, and it's bad for democracy around the world, and it's certainly bad for our country.
Okay, one last question. As a Hindu Indian, how do you see the persecution of Hindus in the neighborhood of India, especially Bangladesh?
Yeah, it's unacceptable. In the end, like I said, we have to treat everyone humanely, even if they have a different background or religion, and we have to make sure that we're upholding human rights around the globe, really. And that's why I'll go back to USAID. I mean, that's part of the work that they were doing, right? And so I look at our track record as a country. We have stood up for human rights in the past. And now I'm starting to see that we're selective about what we speak out about, that we're almost allowing human rights violations. You can have a trade relationship with a country and still call out their human rights violations. So, in the case of Bangladesh, they had a regime change, and you started seeing temples being burnt down. You started seeing Hindus fear for their lives or lose their lives in some cases. We have to call that out. So I've called it out. I know many others in this building have. But I hope that we'll continue to call out instances where there's clear human rights violations, because that's our values as a country in the United States.
Well, thank you for your time, Mr. Subramanyam.
Thank you.